No anxiety. Like, you just don't get to do it.
That's got to be a big part of having the stomach for a fight too.
Get it, yeah, and build up the muscles. Like, don't expect to just be there on day one. Like, there's going to be a threshold. There's going to be levels where it's actually legitimately hard for anybody, and you have to give it to God and trust Him. But we often habituate bad behavior in the little things because it doesn't matter. It's adorable. It's tiny, and so we do it and habituate it without worrying about it, and then we're going to flunk the test when it gets big.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Here we are after a hiatus of a break for SASF.
Hiatus?
I don't know if we need to explain what was going on or if we'll save that for another episode.
I would just say I was getting momentum on the Silent Bells.
That's pretty exciting. That should thrill everybody.
Yeah. So I was not podcasting. I was just writing things.
Because there was a lot of momentum gained based on how many SASFs we missed. That's our only measurement we care about.
However, it was a 2 or 3 SASF session. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're here now. We're back for Stories Our Soul Food. And we're going to talk about what, Brian?
Well, today we're going to start off with a bunch of needy Canadians.
Oh, boy. So insulting.
So the Canadians say, I had a question for Nate. I was wondering what his current take is on Canada. What would the narrative for Canadians in Canada look like?
Blame Canada.
And so I thought I'll just ask Nate. And we're
my
gonna get
narrative, what my take on Canada is?
Well, I think they hear us discuss the U.S. empire and its rot quite often. And I think they're jealous. They would like some of their own. I don't know. While you were gaining momentum, of course, Canada had that election where the Conservatives were supposed to go the same way as Trump, but then they ended up losing.
They did the opposite.
Yep. So the Liberal government takes over, and Pierre Poilievre even lost his seat. I don't understand how their politics work, but their version.
I would say that conservatives are dangerous things.
Yeah.
Usually pretty stupid. And this is I can't get into it. There's not enough here for a full podcast, but I would just say that this is a conservative reaction.
Yeah.
So people think, oh, the conservatives lost. It's like, no, the conservatives won. Because conservatism is fundamentally about conserving what the status quo, the way we do things. Like, conservatism is a weird thing. And so the progressives who have been rotting out Canada with revolution and weirdness,
crazy immigration,
suddenly Trump sets a new talking point of, let's talk about the dissolution of the nation entirely. And it's kind of taunting, and he's doing his art of the deal stuff, but part of the reaction to that is a complete conservative recoiling.
You're saying we don't want that.
Yeah,
we want
a recoiling from
this
that
to stay how it is. Yeah.
And so that basically, I think that you'd have a lot of conservatives in Canada who actually were voting progressive. You know, they're not looking to create upheaval and a baking soda volcano up there that will potentially cease to be Canada. They love their country and they don't want it to stop existing. Understandably. So
as one does with nations.
Yes. So it's sort of I look at it as a conservative reaction, and you think about it in terms of conservative personality and conservative reflex as opposed to the content of particular political principles. You know, it's not an election based on, you know, constitutional principles or revolutionary principles. It's actually just an election that was on basically Trump's desire to absorb Canada, his stated desire.
So you kind of agree that this one here is just a reaction to what's happening down here, and
and I think it actually weakens Canada significantly. I don't think it's bad for Trump and his negotiations with Canada.
Okay.
I don't think he wants a strong
conservative
government up there. I think it makes his life a lot harder. If you have a Canada first government dealing with an America first government, it's going to be more difficult.
Right.
So anyway, and of course, socially, things are far gone up there, social issues. Anyway, I think it's rotten. It's terrible. And it's going to be a bad government, but
yeah, it has been already.
Yeah.
And I think the Canadians that I know also, all I know about Pierre Poilievre is his apple eating.
Yeah. A viral video.
The viral video, right?
Yep.
Which is part of what stinks. But also for them, they say, he's not any more principled than some of our conservatives.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? But that does lead into our question. We've gone past well over 100 days of Trump. What do us Americans? What are you thinking? One of the questions that I have is how in the world would you maintain the momentum that he started with over 4 years?
Easy.
Do you think so? Is
Yeah.
it? Oh, okay. Because I'm looking at it just thinking it feels like if he slows down at all, things just stop, and all of a sudden it looks like everybody's winning, and you know the establishment comes back. It's like the tide.
Yeah, I think that he's
and NPR runs enough.
he's
sad immigrant
unrelenting.
stories.
He's unrelenting. The sad immigrant stories aren't going to work.
Because we've had that already.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
the nerve endings are dead there.
Yeah.
That particular pathos is not going to be effective. But immigration is such a huge deal for him because of the midterms. And he has not very much time. And so all of this, and with immigration and everything else, is this blitz towards the next time America is voting. And the next time America is voting, he is actually trying to change the voting block because he's trying to eliminate a lot of voting fraud and the engine that has been used to swing elections
Right.
regionally and so on for a long time. So in going after illegal immigration, he is putting his finger on the scale of the actual vote, the voting public,
Yeah.
which already has fingers on the scale, and those fingers are primarily via immigration. And so he is absolutely blitzing on that one. But also everybody needs to remember two things. One, he wrote a book called The Art of the Deal.
Yeah.
In which he just talks about how he does this all the time. And so when people talk about, man, he's retreating off of tariffs, it's like, of course he is. That's what he does. He talks about coming out in this like crazy opening stance and then retreating back into a deal, a compromise that, go really, really hard, set that boundary way out there such that you can come back to where you want to be. And they are all thrilled. So when people are talking about him retreating off of tariffs, it's like, just read his book.
Yeah. I mean, it's also America
the next time
first,
you see
right?
him, and the next time you see him do this, next time you see him like throw something way out there, just remember, don't lose your minds as much. Remember what he's doing. Like he's planting that flag because he wants to be here. He's attacking there, and he's going to fall back to here and look really reasonable all of a sudden.
I think we've been playing political silly games for so long that people pay lip service to ideas for so long.
Yeah.
And now we have someone who's actually just saying, no, I choose the country first. So if it would be better for America to have Greenland than
We're doing
not,
that.
I'm going to say, let's have a Greenland.
Yep.
And
I think he will get that.
I think what I heard is that, I've heard something similar. It's like how far away from that happening does Denmark want Greenland?
Yeah, they do. Of course they do.
I mean, more than selling it to us.
I think that we'll end up with Greenland, but not Canada. I think we're going to end up with much better trading relations with Canada than NAFTA gave us. But, it'll be weird. Yeah. Things are going to be weird with Canada for a while. But I think he's pushing for the midterms. But also, in addition to being the Art of the Deal guy, he's also a reality show producer. And this is the thing that needs to be remembered the most. He wants drama. He wants today's episode. He wants a recurring show that can run 365 4 years straight. And so he's going to say that he wants to be Pope. He's going to talk about a third term. He's going to throw out this drama and create all the tension and the froth that you need on the page. You need in the scene in order to keep people watching until tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow for the exciting second part series of our trade war with Canada. It's like, so he's producing a show, and he's trying to push for the midterms, but all he's doing is producing a show.
Okay.
That's it. And the photo ops of like, oh, I'm going to just happen to do a little 1v1 with Zelensky at the Pope's funeral.
Yeah.
Like yet another photo
Who
op.
staged that one?
It's great. And I'm going to kick the French president out to do it. Like, oh, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be leaked that because he loves the royals, that it was Prince William that made that like it's
right.
I mean,
and also the Pope photo is a funny one too, because it's like he's been posting photos of himself with Jesus. So we've had a problem with that, and it's like, so the idea that like somehow he's
out of his mind.
He's crossed a line.
He's eccentric. He's eccentric. He's out of his mind, and he's a reality show producer. And he is producing
also,
the
he's
reality
American.
show. And
proudly American.
So American.
That connects it all.
So American. And he's producing the reality show today and tomorrow and the next day. This is why when people are upset at Hegseth for a Signal group chat, Trump doesn't care. They're like, ooh, drama. Like, hurrah. He wants drama. He needs that drama. We have to just,
And he needs the drama because
it's a story, because he's producing a reality show.
Because he likes it, or because it's effective?
Both.
Okay. So
I think he loves it, and it is also very effective because it keeps all of his enemies so controllable.
Okay, because they're constantly popping off about this particular tiny issue, and then all of a sudden he says we should bring back Alcatraz, and they have to write a bunch more.
And they all have to
write more.
Start
pieces.
taking very, very important positions on Alcatraz, which he doesn't care at all about that. He they go.
He literally sent them across the ocean too.
It's just squirrel. It's just him being like squirrel, squirrel, and all the dogs go.
Yeah,
and it's so easy, and so it enables him to control his greatest enemy, the media, also his greatest allies.
Yeah,
he can just control them constantly.
So
he's got the
middle
squirrel.
and the and he's still holding to the fact that if he can make you react, then he wins.
So the question is, could he really continue this pace? The question is purely, will he run out of outrageous things to say or do? And I don't think he will.
Well, when you put it like that, we're all like, I don't think so. I saw that today. Today was the 9-year anniversary of him posting about how much he loves taco bowls and the Hispanics.
Yeah.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. And that was 9 years ago. And I just thought, how far we've come.
I do love a taco bowl. Love my Hispanic brethren via taco bowls.
So yeah, I think you're probably on safe ground with.
He's gonna keep finding it. It's going to be the next thing. And in that chaos, he thrives and he wins. He creates the convection. And so, to steal something from some verbiage from my son, all systems, and I think this is true, all systems are always either in a state of convection or a state of congealing.
Huh.
Everything is either convecting or congealing. So systems they have congealed, and the instant they have congealed, they start to build pressure, and then they're going to convect. Systems that are convecting are about to settle and congeal. So if you are somebody who wants to put America first and make America great again, and I need to blow up all these systems, all these things that have congealed and just are, well, what do you need to do? You need a lot of pressure and a lot of convection, and you need chaos. So in that chaos, you can then redesign how the dust settles. And like you can recongeal, you can redo the concrete only if you jackhammered the concrete up.
Right.
You got to blow the lid off the volcano if you want to actually have any say over how the peak is shaped. And that's what he does. I mean, he's just convection, Department of Education. And no other president, I think, would be as effective in doing this than would ever be as or even more, no way more effective than Trump. And I don't think even as effective, because he can do something as aggressive as shuttering the Department of Education.
Right.
And it barely headlines.
Right.
For more than a week.
Right.
Barely.
Yeah. And
if George W. had set out and be like, well, I've got to convince the American people and I got to bring them along. Then I got to explain myself, and I need them to come on board in order for this to work. I've got to actually lead the people by convincing the people. It's like, no, that's not how Trump does this. And Bush would have failed, just like HW failed, just like Reagan failed.
Yeah, because Bush gave us Common Core instead, the opposite of educational reform.
And so, but if you think about Carter founded the Department of Education. The very next president said he was going to abolish it, and failed to.
Just because he's afraid of being seen as anti-education. I mean, I think that has to be it, right? It's
so somebody like Reagan is going to undo what Carter did, and he was undoing all sorts of things that Carter did, but he was going to undo what Carter did about education, and then he doesn't. He can't. It's like, but couldn't he? Yeah, of course he could, but he didn't have the nerve or the stomach for the upheaval that it would have caused, and Trump has the stomach for all the upheaval. He is an agent of chaos. He loves to play chicken. He will play chicken every single day, anywhere, everywhere, about anything. He will play chicken with people.
Yeah.
And as soon as you flinch, then he will become reasonable, and you'll find a deal.
Yeah.
But he 100% will drive right into your car.
Yeah.
And then you flinch, great. And then you can be friends, and now let's negotiate. But
Right. Well, isn't that what we've talked about before? That, you know, I think I've mentioned Friedman before, but the idea of leadership having sabotage that comes after it, and many presidents in the past would react to that as if it's a bad thing, you know?
yeah,
Like when we're charging forward at this target and people object because we got somewhere. That's, you know, I guess, how do you think through that? Is that, how do you view that, I guess the word sabotage that comes flying through when a successful leadership stand is taken?
ultimately leaders always sabotage themselves first, always, and it open themselves up to that sabotage,
Okay.
further sabotage. But that
You
first,
mean they take eyes off the goal, or they do something stupid to themselves, or what kind of sabotage are you looking at here?
okay, just to jump in and say, okay, an unwillingness to end up on the cross is a lack of conviction. Real leaders are going, and at some point they might end up betrayed. At some point they might end up drawn and quartered like William Wallace. Like, because the alternative to that kind of emotional sabotage is actual betrayal and conflict and death and destruction and violence. Christ was willing to be on the cross. He was willing to go until he was on the cross. He didn't flinch from that. And what leaders do is when they see something clearly and they're pushing for the good of whatever group it is that they're leading, when they flinch because they see, oh, I need to convince everybody behind me. I need to get consensus. I need them to be on board. I need to do a little more educating. I need to get them on. Now,
I can't do this if everyone doesn't agree.
a leader, a leader who is bass backwards cannot lead people. He's facing the crowd. Instead of leading the crowd, he's facing the crowd, and he's trying to like coax and back away, leading them in a direction. And as soon as you see leader alignment pivot, and you have a leader who is facing the group he's supposed to be leading and is sort of trying to lead them by backpedaling and coaxing them in a direction, that leader has now sabotaged themselves.
Gotcha.
And is now open to sabotage from anybody. Because anybody who wants to sabotage them at that point now has the levers and the strings that make it work.
Because they're paying attention.
Because they're not front facing.
Right.
They're like, I'm trying to like.
So you could still have someone run up behind you and stick a knife in.
Yeah, people can.
But you're not doing that to yourself. And it's still effective to become a martyr for something.
The alternative to emotional sabotage, the alternative to leaders being sabotaged is always leaders being martyred and murdered. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
So there will always be a resistance. There will always be people who resent and resist and try to undermine what you're doing. And you can take away one whole toolbox from them by just not caring whether you hurt somebody's feelings, not caring whether you're going where it's right to go. You're on your way that direction, and people can come or not.
Yeah.
You're not turned around facing the crowd trying to bring them with you. Yeah. If you do that, then, well, now they can be emotionally resistant. They can be hurt. They can be wounded. Oh, no.
Right.
You know, right. I'm trying to get them to come. They don't want to come. What do I do? Like, peace. Like, go.
Yeah, okay.
My dad there's even an old Credenda agenda with this title, but my dad has a phrase he likes to say called pull, don't push about leaders. You got to be front facing, pull the group, pull the herd. Don't get around behind them and try to.
And say, come on, you're not mother ducking.
And so pull, don't push, but that's different. That's more about effective use of boards and lieutenants and sub leaders. So if you are a leader and you're around behind the board saying, hey guys, I think we ought to do this. You're campaigning and politicking instead of getting out in front and, and trying to pull. So taking your own action and going in a particular direction and letting people follow.
Yeah.
As opposed to, meeting with committees and trying to get the whole committee to have consensus. And those committees, and I'll say this, often when you're meeting with those committees, you are by proxy actually meeting with a lot of men's wives who aren't there, especially in the church. So if you're meeting with a bunch of men, you're like, we ought to do this. And they're like, yeah. And like, okay, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go home and they're going to try to get consensus. And they're going to fail to get consensus. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of guys who come back around.
It's true.
You're going to end up with a whole bunch of guys who come around. It's like, I've been thinking. I've been thinking more about this.
Yeah.
And that's just a pattern. I think it's a pattern inside the church, especially.
What's your favorite? Is it a 20-minute rule or 15-minute rule?
20.
It's a 20-minute rule. Any committee,
any meeting
that goes longer than 20 minutes.
Yes, any meeting that goes longer than 20 minutes, someone will propose. So you can if you're going to phrase it correctly, you'll say, in any meeting which goes longer than 20 minutes, someone will propose something which, if adopted, would ruin everything. So somebody will always propose ruining everything.
Is that Nate's first law?
I
think that's a great one.
And I have found it to be true in every single meeting that goes over 20 minutes.
Well, what's funny
somebody will say, hey, but what if we...
Having your law in the back of my head, I've realized when I've been tempted to do that in a meeting.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not. I'm just saying
you're just like...
There's a vacuum the vacuum is created, and somebody has to fill the vacuum with an idea.
It's convection or congealing, and committee meetings are pretty congealing.
Yes. And so somebody's like, so what if we
convect?
And it's not even always unhealthy. It's frequently somebody needs to put it on the table so everybody can remind themselves of their vision, because abandoning the vision is there. Like we could
stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We could, you know what? But what if we weren't a classical school?
It's the
what if
question.
we quit teaching Latin?
Right.
What if we didn't do what we've been working towards for the last 40 years?
I mean, I think that's the leadership thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Of like, you stop moving forward.
You got to go.
Turned around and.
Yep. And so the great characters, the best leaders are those who inspire people to follow and inspire people to courage and inspire people to conviction because of their own courage and their own conviction.
Yeah.
And because they are not awaiting your consensus.
Well, I can't wait till we get to talk more about Ashtown, because I think Cyrus is a fantastic use case of some of this stuff here.
Yeah,
so.
Ashtown actually is a series in which I put all of the things I think about everything. So
yeah, that's what I was saying.
So
I can't wait till people. Yeah, we got to talk.
There
about
we go.
It
yeah, chapter 16 in the can, chapter 17 in the can.
Yeah,
edits to be made. Things are rocking and rolling. The series is reaching its end finally.
No, it's exciting.
Which I'm enjoying immensely. But I will say that I'll say this about Ashtown. When I set out to plan the series, I was thinking about, what do people need? Like, what kind of meal can I serve? And it's the same thing. It's not like, what do you feel like? You want some Mexican? Or should we eat some enchiladas? What are we eating tonight? You want steaks? I was just looking out at the general story consuming public and thinking, what kind of meal is the best meal I could serve up for them, but that I'm capable of doing? And the answer for me was I need to tell a story about kids who are entering into an institution and an inheritance that is collapsing and rotting. So, like
Black Pill Nate, my favorite.
Yeah, it's not Black Pill at all. It's look around at the world right now. What do kids need to be prepared for? Like what do you do imagine if Harry Potter was going up to Hogwarts and he was reaching Hogwarts right at this inflection point of collapse. Where this thing has been here for 1,000 years. It's been here for 1,500 years. So then it's it's.
He kind of did, but I think she misidentified what's causing the decay, because she was like, the thing that makes Hogwarts fail is Voldemort, outdoor enemy, which is never the thing.
Hogwarts never had a clear vision, but obviously that was more like Eton during World War II. Sort of, it's like,
oh, sure, yeah.
It's more like a British infrastructure during a time of cataclysm, and obviously there's a personal connection back on both sides to Hogwarts. But I really wanted to have like the remnant, this amazing remnant, this yeast, this light, this lighthouse that the Order of Brendan has been for over a millennium, singular. It didn't go 2,000 years, but then
just
and like we're right here where it's like
flickering.
It's waxed fat, like it's begun to exist for its own sake and has lost its purpose, which all institutions do.
Man,
So and that's the United States, that's the church, that's all sorts of things. So I wanted to write middle grade, 2 kids, but 4 adults as well, of you're stepping into this inheritance, but what you're inheriting is in ruin. And like, how do you step in?
which,
and
as far as authors go, what stakes? That's awesome.
it's pretty fun.
It's a
I've
great
really enjoyed
pitch
it.
of just
Yeah.
like, wow, the currents and the emotional drive and the stakes for success and failure, just by you picking that moment, feels like it really delivered a lot of sorrow, but also good stuff.
A lot of potential, but it's also, I think it actually, even as fantastical it is, as it is, I think it has had a weird connectivity because people, kids even who haven't really thought much about it, but are just reading an exciting story, they do connect to their own lives where they are as heirs to something amazing that has gone into a period of decay and is at this inflection point of dying forever or in need of restoration and reconsecration. So reconsecration is the word I use in the book. It's like, or basically a recommitment to its vision and its purpose in the world, and how do you get it back to there? And I think it's a journey that a lot of kids can relate to and enjoy, but also strangely powerful because it is connect exactly to where we sit right now in our institutions.
So a kid who's been fed on the Ashtown idea, that ethos there, or maybe it's the pathos, I guess, feels it when an institution collapses in front of them and they realize I've been here before.
Yep.
And are learning how to commit, double down, and grab onto what's important, even while other people are apparently forgetting everything.
When the books were first publishing and they were first going out, I heard from a number of people in those book tour days who were in places of extreme despair, who weren't, like, where it was like, okay, they were able to turn out of it. And that included people just in the secular world, but people in the church generally. But there is no institution out there. There is not a single homeschool co-op, not a single church, not a single school that doesn't have existential struggles over the institution. There's not a single institution that doesn't have the ebb and flow of the narrative arcs of mortal institutions, of any kind of mortal structure. So there are people who are conservatives who start to fight to protect the institution for its own sake. And I gave a talk once where I talked about pirates on a pirate ship who just obsess over cleaning the ship and wanting to keep it safe instead of remembering what it's for.
Yeah.
It's meant for the danger. It's meant for the war to go raiding the British fleet and everything else. And it's really easy for people to start to preserve the school, preserve the college, preserve, the K through 12, preserve the church, this congregation, I should say,
right,
for its own sake instead of for its purpose on this earth.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that even with families.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Which, of course, obviously we preserve the marriage. But not at all costs.
You actually do not preserve the marriage for its own sake.
Right. And
ever.
Jesus is very specific.
Yeah.
God first, not your wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
And God first, which means serving God first, which means mission first.
Right.
So, I will say I have seen over decades, I've seen plenty of people screw up their marriages by looking at it instead of driving it.
Just mirroring on the wall sort of thing with their marriage.
Yep. And wives who want to be the focus, want their husband to turn inward and be looking at the family and at the marriage and at the wife in a way that, excludes the mission.
I mean, I think it's tempting for husbands to do that too, because you're problem solvers. And so you're thinking,
and it's also way more fun. It's a great place to be. It's comfortable. I mean, it's great to go home and play with your kids and have dinner with your kids, and it's wonderful. It's such a blessing, and it's really easy to just take that dopamine and then not go to war.
And you can think, I'm going to solve these problems here, and then we're just going to kind of protect, as opposed to being like, no, we're going, and we're all going together.
Yeah. So Ashtown for me is all about faithfulness and courage in a period of decay and collapse. And that's, and how to get to that restoration, how to get to that win as individuals, which just means that having the stomach for the fight. And like people who were it's so the things I heard from kids right when the books were releasing and from parents about despair and frustration and then how they were responding to it. I heard a ton during COVID, people reacting to their schools, flaming out,
Churches
the betrayal
not
of
meeting.
the betrayal of friends, the betrayal of leaders who wander, leaders who let you down. And that's now been a theme with all the woke compromise, with all the rot in our culture. The number of people who have either been active agents of it or have just not been the immune system they were supposed to be, just didn't stand up to it. They're like the Maginot Line at the beginning of World War II. It just got rolled right over.
Yeah.
Versus those who stood strong and resisted, and sometimes in extreme isolation in pockets. But anybody who was faithful, like really faithful through that time, lost friends.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to lose friends, family members, institutions would lose a bunch of people, families in schools, people leaving churches. People were going to leave churches. It was a question of which people, right? It was just a great sifting.
Yeah.
And that's always what happens in these moments.
Well,
So
I was going to ask a question about directing, but I think this might be something we need to chase farther. How do you get the stomach for the fight? Like what's the...
I think we've talked a little bit about this before, where I talk about making my kids like engage in conflict. So one of the things I hate the most is listening to people complain about something
Without fixing it.
without taking action.
Yeah.
Like, what am I part of the solution? Why are you telling me this?
Yeah.
And now that you have told me this, I'm going to take action unless you are, and you really should, because it's going to make you look terrible if I take action on this. So and so. I'm going to give you a minute to go deal with this, to go write that email, to make that phone call, and enter into that conflict. That place of conflict. And then, but if you don't, I will.
Yeah.
So. Somebody's going to.
So practice.
Practice. And so the thing is, you can't have a fifth grader, you can't have a sixth grader who does not have complaints. Right?
Right.
So what do you do with that? Well, if you just tell them like no complaining, you stop it. That's not helpful. Like that, like bottle that up. Like you see something bad, you better neuter that. Like, no, if they actually see it,
right.
They need to discern in the complaint whether or not they are being whiny and need to suck it up and shut up, or is there actually a seed of something real here and you've encountered it and you are part of the immune system. So if you've encountered something bad, something broken, you need to address it. You need to talk to your teacher. You need to write a letter.
Right.
You write your email draft. I'll read it before you send it. It's like you write it and it'll come from my account, but it's from you and signed by you if you're young enough. But you're going to start thinking about, how do I express this? How do I address this? This is the problem. I have found a problem I need to address. And not I found a problem that gives me something to cry about to mom.
Yeah.
That does nothing, like, except for weaken you and fuel an unhealthy relationship. So
I think I've heard you say that before. Be the immune system.
yeah.
I guess that's a fleshed out version of practice. If you find a germ, you got to wash it out.
So we all know if somebody's walking through the hall of their school or in the foyer of their church or whatever,
Fancy.
and they're like, there's a Snickers wrapper on the floor.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they leave and just walk by it and tell people, I cannot believe there was a Snickers wrapper on the floor. Like, I cannot believe that would happen. How many people walk past that? It's like, what kind of like piece of work are you?
Right.
So pick it up, throw it in the trash. And there's two things. There's one is like the current presentation of a problem. Pick that up, put it in the trash, solved. But then there's something systemic.
If there's Snicker wrappers every
Why
day.
are there always Snicker wrappers here? Why is there another one here? Something's going on, and I can pick it up and throw it away, but then I need to figure out, like, what is the systemic problem? What is the operational problem?
It's probably the sixth graders.
Yeah, sixth graders, or we need to talk to the sixth graders, or is there a janitor at this school? Like, have we not hired a janitor? Do we have no janitorial? It's like it's that kind of a thing. But if you just don't do anything, if you just pick the wrapper up and throw it away, you're not helping. You're not actually helping refine the institution and improve the institution. You're solving one particular moment. You pick it up, you throw it away, but then what? And if you see that in curriculum and how something's being taught, you see that in how things are being graded, you see that in dynamics, interpersonal dynamics in a class.
Yeah.
You see that in teacher behavior. You know, it's a Snickers wrapper. So if you don't talk to the teacher, if you don't flag it, you know, it's kind of an issue.
Yeah. Okay. That follows. I think another one, perhaps this is also with how you deal. Most people have been trained perhaps to deal with pressure by turning it into stress, which is like worrying at God, I think, as opposed to what's the proper way to deal with that pressure. I've heard it from your mom and dad both, but stress is a sin. Just that little statement. When someone just says, I'm just so stressed, your parents very
be
kindly
anxious
say,
over nothing.
Stress is a sin.
I really deal with anxiety.
Yeah.
You realize that's like saying I deal with drunkenness. You know, I don't think we realize that. I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, but if I start dealing with these problems, then I have to deal with the stress of these problems. I am addicted to a particular chemical imbalance and a chemical behavior in my head. It's like, yeah, you need to stop. Just stop drinking. Don't drink. Like, I'm susceptible to alcohol is what you're saying. I am susceptible to anxiety. It's like, okay, well, then we need to walk away from that. You need to be done.
Cast all your burdens.
Be anxious over nothing.
Prayer and supplication instead.
Nothing.
Yeah, right.
No anxiety. Like, you just don't get to do it. So
that's got to be a big part of having the stomach for a fight too.
And build up the muscles. Like, don't expect to just be there on day one. Like, it actually is going to mean like, okay, where do I see myself being anxious or giving into it where it'd be easy not to? There's going to be a threshold. There's going to be levels where it's actually legitimately hard for anybody. And you have to give it to God and trust him. But we often habituate bad behavior in the little things because it doesn't matter. It's adorable. It's tiny. And so we do it and habituate it without worrying about it. And then we're going to flunk the test when it gets big.
Yeah, that's great.
So
we're remarkably fine with messing up the same small thing over and over again without thinking ahead and being like, is there a way for me to fix this perhaps and not fail the same small test?
Yeah. I keep stressing out over this particular thing, this little thing, and you're just practicing to stress out for the big one that's coming. It's all the little worksheets, but there's a final exam on its way. And like, build the muscles, lift the weights, do the work, like actually do the work of growing as a person so that you are ready to do the work for the big moments. So anyway, it's that kind of a thing. And that is why I like to write the stories I write. That's why Ashtown is the way it is. It's also why I have had plenty of meetings with people and plenty of conflict. You know, it's not
because you're just abrasive.
Might be a little bit of that too. But I told a buddy recently, I was like, I am very comfortable in conflict. And so the risk of that is you can end up in conflict that there's no upside. Yeah. Or you can end up in conflict where there's very little upside. Sure. Where it's just not worth the upheaval you're going to cause for the other people. There's not the benefit. So you do have to, when you've built up a tolerance for it, you do have to actually try to have wisdom that is it worth it? And most of the time, no. Right. Most of the time, peace is worth it. I mean, love covering a multitude of sins is worth it. Most of the time. Well, pick up the Snickers wrapper and move on, and don't think it needs a meeting of the elders. Right. So,
I think what I was kind of hinting at there is not that Friedman's metaphor of gas in a room. We tend to think the spark is the problem. But no, it's because the room is full of gas.
The room is full of gas.
And
for sure.
You're right. You can open a window in different ways.
Yeah. But we do need a lot more characters in these days. We need many more characters with a stomach for conflict, but also with a strategic mind for it. Yeah. Because you can end up in conflict and and you're like, I've got the stomach for this, but you don't have the brain to win. Actually, you're not going to achieve anything other than your own demise. Right. So
you'll hear strategies from people and just think that's not going to work.
That's a bad idea.
Why are you wasting time on that?
Yeah. Don't do it. So
especially on the internet.
But conflict's wonderful. It is a really good thing. I think Chesterton who said that I love hot water. It keeps me clean. I love being in hot water. Yeah. And it's that kind of a thing. So
I mean, I think a lot of us.
it's not why Trump loves it.
Right.
It keeps him in control because it keeps everybody else freaking out. That's why he loves it.
Well, I mean, I assume this is a lesson even people who grow up, around a lot of conflict can learn, because you realize, oh yeah, actually I wasn't ready for as much as I needed to be ready for.
Or I was letting other people do it, and
Yes.
I was fine with it. But I was happy to sit one row back and just let other people sort it out. And I had the stomach for them being in conflict. I didn't have the stomach for me being in that meeting specifically.
Right.
But I think I mentioned that I was excommunicated. I might have still been a teenager the first time I was excommunicated.
Not from your own church, though, right?
Well, it depends on how you view the church, your ecclesiology. This is a callback.
Get nerdy theological
and we'll end here. It was Dutch Reformed people in Canada.
Right.
Let's call back. These Canadians thought that they could excommunicate me from not just the other side of the country, but from the adjacent country, for my sense of humor and my wit at the time as a managing editor of Credenda Agenda magazine. I was responsible for a lot of the goofing off in the Cave of Adullam,
right?
And some
the
of
best section of the magazine.
Some of the answers to some of the letters, and so I was excommunicated for that.
But that's foreigners. Foreigners don't get to say how we do.
They're not in charge of me. They don't have the keys. They don't hold the keys there. Yeah. Anyway, that was the first time, and so maybe I became a little too comfortable with it a little too early. But
so if there's a lesson for Canada, it's number one:
excommunicate American teenagers early and often,
because it has very successful.
It's really, really fruitful. I would say if there's a lesson for Canada, not from that, but generally right now, Americans are the same way. As you see partisan behavior, you need to see the pattern of personality, like conservatism, conservative reactionary behavior. American conservatives are doing the same things about tariffs, like losing their minds about the idea of a tariff. Because free trade, like, wait a second, like free trade, internal free trade, like interstate commerce, yes. But absolute free trade is the creation of a new world order. It is a flattening to the lowest denomination of oppression, slavery, like anything go. If it becomes one economic ecosystem, then the sweatshops, of course, that's where Nikes are made. Of course, that's where we make our stuff. Of course, we use child labor. Of course, because we're following the laws of that land. We're obeying the laws of that particular land.
I mean, I saw Chinese factories testing vapes. I thought they were all like individual workers doing 10,000 a day. You're just like, those people are.
That's horrible, and that's our environmental ecosystem. That's our economic ecosystem.
Right.
If we go to just free trade, I have a principle: free trade. Like the phrase, you think you understand it, but you really don't at all. But so conservatives can have partisans will just be whatever Trump's doing is great. So of course that's not always the case. But conservatives love to keep things the way they are. And they want to just change some of the new changes. Let's just override some of the current DEI, the woke stuff that's brand new. Let's throw that out and conserve the way it was in the 80s. The NAFTA stuff. Got to get back to NAFTA. Really, though? I mean...
develop some larger perspective than perhaps just
exactly
the 80s.
So just know the conservative reflex is a reflex. It's not necessarily principled. And that's what I think we just saw in Canada. And the progressive reflex is a personality reflex. It's obviously unprincipled.
Are we going to have a big one of those in the midterm, you think, here in the U.S.?
Very high likelihood, yeah.
So we're on the countdown, year and a half.
And I think that's why we're trying to, Trump's trying to get rid of many of the opposing votership as he possibly can. Yeah. Illegal votes.
Paid votes, yeah.
Yeah, the first groups he can offload. And of course, also, judicial theory is hilarious right now. The district judges who are like, cease and desist, President of the United States. That stuff is pretty funny, too. Right. So, anyway, we should move on. We're going to bail next SASF, and we'll talk about something else. Send in as many questions as you have about any old thing, and we'll have excuses to have another podcast.
That's great.
Peace. Lay your life down. Your heartbeats cannot be hoarded. Your reservoir of breaths is draining away. You have hands, blister them while you can. You have bones, make them strain. They can carry nothing in the grave. You have lungs, let them spill with laughter. With With an average life expectancy of 78.2 years in the U.S., subtracting 8 hours a day for sleep, I have around 250,000 conscious hours remaining to me in which I could be smiling or scowling, rejoicing in my life, in this race, in this story, or moaning and complaining about my troubles. I can be giving my fingers, my back, my mind, my words, my breaths to my wife and my children and my neighbors. Or I can grasp after the vapor and the vanity for myself, dragging my feet, afraid to die, and therefore afraid to live. And like Adam, I will still die in the